Hello.
Happy Saturday again.
Yes, it is Saturday. Wow, it's wild that we're doing these on Saturday.
I know. I think this is our last one scheduled, though, so we'll have to really relish it and treasure it.
I agree. 3 hours with one of my best friends,
And me.
talking to some great people. We're really excited, folks. This is going to be a very special episode of SideKick Power Hour. My name is Nakia.
And my name is Joshua.
And together, we co-host this podcast and live stream
Called SideKick Power Hour.
Yes. And for those in the comments, it is not Psychic Power Hour. That was that sounds amazing though.
I mean, we could always pretend we were psychic and just be like, Nakia, I see on your palm that you have been not shaving it.
Not shaving my palm?
Well, hairy palms are a sign of too much masturbation.
Okay, gotcha. But I always thought it was from this side.
Well, yeah, your palm.
Right.
This is the back of your hand.
Right, but why would you say they didn't shave this?
Because the old wives' tale is that if you masturbated too much, you would get hairy palms.
Okay.
It's an old folklore.
I understand that part. What I'm saying is, why did you say it felt like I shaved it?
Hadn't shaved it.
I see. Gotcha. Now that makes more sense. Okay.
Yes. Well, we've got Saud in the audience. Hello, Saud. How are you? And Jalen. So we've got
Jalen. Now listen, Jalen has been hungry for an afternoon, an American afternoon show, probably for quite some time. Jalen, what time is it where you are?
What time is it, Jalen, in Taiwan? And Saud likes your T-shirt, Nakia.
Well, this is James Unsworth shirt. So I'm glad that you brought that up, because today on the show we will have the person who created this shirt, James Unsworth, who is a really talented artist out of the UK, and Joshua has been a model for him.
I have, and we'll talk about that for sure.
And then tell us about your shirt.
Well, because Saud likes my shirt as well. It is the official SideKick Power Hour logo, available at sidekicksupermarket.com.
You should buy one, Saud.
I'm not sure if Jalen wants it afternoon time, because it's 12 a.m. in Taiwan.
Oh, gotcha. Oh no, you can't be up with us for 3 hours, Jalen.
Jalen could. It's Sunday, so for him.
Okay, so earlier on my Instagram and on my Twitter, yes, I've been showing Twitter a little love this last week.
That's unexpected, considering your big hiatus and to do.
Well, I'll get there. Hang on. So I asked in a poll on Zoom, do you flip your camera so that it mirrors your image? What do you do, Josh?
On Zoom, I don't really use it that much anymore, except for work at my day job. So when I do it, I don't really care, because I don't need anyone to read what I'm wearing. But I know that automatically StreamYard does it for us. So
yes. And I just realized that I had mine turned backwards because I was testing it earlier, and that's what it made me think of. But I did want to say, I don't know, speaking of Twitter, you probably have seen me tweet a couple times that I was looking for a Blue Sky invite, and I got one yesterday. So I
don't even know what Blue Sky is. I just see everyone wanting it.
It's basically the Twitter that Jack Dorsey, who started Twitter, started right before he left Twitter. And sold it to Elon. So
it's another attempt to have a new Twitter, much like Tribal and Social and Hive and
but this one is right now super hard to get into, and has some promise. So
well, CJ wants you to invite him.
To invite him where?
I assume to Blue Sky, but maybe to your house. I don't
Oh,
know.
to Blue Sky. Yeah, I don't know how soon I get invites. I know that I have
Invite
promised.
him where? He wants you to go to Western Exposure with him, Blue Sky.
Well, I
Nakia.
will be going to Western Exposure. I'm so glad you brought it up. Actually, in fact,
It was synergy there, so.
it was. Let me quickly pull that up here, actually, before I forget, and share it with the folk.
And while you're looking, what is Western Exposure, Nakia?
Well, Western Exposure is a party that is was created by Weston and Brian, and Weston has been putting it on now for 8 or 9 years, maybe longer. It happens primarily in Palm Springs. Western Exposure is in Palm Springs, and it always happens at the clothing optional resort there called CCBC, or I don't know what the BC stands for, to be honest. I think it might be beach.
I
No,
thought that was a bar in New York City that closed.
CCBC. No, that's CBGB.
Oh,
CCBC is a clothing optional resort there in Palm Springs, or technically Cathedral City, and the I've been going there since 2019. Of course, I had to skip 2020, but Robert and I started going together in 2021, and have been several times. Well, basically every time they've had one, just about it since. Excuse me. And
I get
this
emotional when I think about it too.
this last one in April, I performed for the first time as part of this what we were calling Meaty Bits. It's a bear variety show. We're doing it again. Um, this time it's Saturday, July 8th, which is a week from today. Excuse me. It's a week from today, 7 p.m. in Cathedral City, California. I'll be performing music, obviously, out of all of these people here. Chris Grace, Joseph Schless, Alan Massa, and Celine Kuklowski will be performing comedy sets. And then there's the Q&A with West, or West Cub, as a lot of people know him, because he's a prolific and well-known OnlyFans creator. We'll be hosting our little Q&A with everybody. Tickets are only $15. There's a 2-item minimum. There's not a last time we did a preset meal, like it was, this is what the menu was, here's the courses, choose your dessert kind of thing, and then the tickets were more, and we had more seats. This time we only have a limited amount of seats because it's so hot. We don't have access to the outside. And we're not doing a pre-set thing, so
Probably gonna be quieter then.
it might be, but
Playing
more
night.
people will probably be less apt to order a big meal than just drink,
True.
so, or just like they might order some appetizers, is what I'm guessing. So I have a pretty good idea of what I'm going to perform. Music wise, I think I'm going to have to put in Daddy Issues, because it is Dad Fest.
Absolutely.
So, for sure that one. And then maybe a couple other little surprises. I only have about 15 minutes. So that's usually about 3, maybe 4 songs,
But isn't Western Exposure like 4 times a year, which is very different than any other bear run?
Right. So it happens Thursday through Sunday in April, a Thursday through Sunday in July, a Thursday through Sunday in October, and then now the weekend after that. So there's 2 weekends in October. And then there's now a Christmas one. So there's 5 in Palm Springs. And then now there's also Eastern Exposure that happens in Augusta, Georgia. And I think they're doing those maybe twice a year. And I'm going to try to go to the next one of that.
Oh.
It's a lot of fun. I love walking around naked. It's nice. Obviously, at this show, this is in a restaurant, so there's no nudity. It's actually not inside of the resort. It's on the same property as the resort, and you can literally walk out the door and into this door, but you have to have clothes on to walk out the door. So,
And everyone pay attention to the faces on that poster because most of them will probably be guests on the show at some point.
yeah, I would say pretty much all of these people. Chris Grace will be a guest. Joseph Schless was a guest already this season. Alan Massa, there's no doubt will probably be on here. Wes, we've been talking about getting on. We just have to get him on. And then Celine, I've never met before, so I'm excited to meet Celine and learn more about her. It's weird. Is it letting me? Oh, I see what it's doing.
Did you design this or?
No, Chris Grace did.
Okay, it's just interesting that you're sort of lording over them in your throne, and they're all tiny little heads.
Well, it is, right? And it's also interesting that the Tom of Finland Santa behind me looks like he's got his nose firmly planted in my butt. Like,
I mean, this is Western exposure, so that's probably something that happens.
Speaking of something that happened that I'm still kind of reeling over, last week we had Hamish Steele on the show.
I know, and we have had so many wonderful fans from Dead End watch the episode, and it's been a wonderful crossover for people to see what we do and learn more about Hamish, which has been a delight. Hamish is such a wonderful human being.
Well, I can't wait to edit that together. I don't want to have to edit it, though. We are still looking for an editor that would help us out with this. There's a lot of you in the Cruniverse that are in our Discord sometimes even. And like, I kind of wonder, like, do you have the time to like get that involved? Would you be interested? Again, you don't have to have really any experience. All of this stuff can be taught online. The main reason that we need this help is just because there's only really two of us to do
we're
this.
trying to work really hard on bringing you all the other shows that you know and love.
Yeah, and I'm also working on an album of my own, and so there's lots at play. So we'd love your help. You can email us at casting@sidekickproductions.org.
Thank you.
Yeah. I mean, when I say us, that email will go to Josh.
And Josh will share it with Nakia.
Yeah. Okay.
Apparently, CBGB CCBC is all the rage.
Nice.
I had no idea.
Well, so I will be in Palm Springs next weekend for Meaty Bits. That's part of Dad Fest. That's produced by Western Exposure. Really excited. I'll have a room there at CCBC, so I'll be there the whole weekend. I'm also going to do a DJ set. I'm going to do a yacht rock set in the afternoon.
Yacht rock?
Mm-hmm, yeah.
So like the Beach Boys?
No, more like Christopher Cross, Michael McDonald, Kenny Loggins. Like
Kenny Loggins, he's the saxophone player, right?
Yep, that's right. So I'll be out there, and then is there anything in particular, Josh, that was happening in the Cruniverse this week?
Well, just to be clear, then that means that there's probably no episode on the 12th. Is that right?
Is that what we decided?
I don't know. You're gone then, aren't you?
Well, the 12th is a Wednesday.
There's
10th. No episode. In fact, what we may do is air this episode on the 10th.
Gotcha. So
yeah,
it would be a replayed episode, much like our last Saturday episode was replayed.
Yeah, because we're live next week.
Yes, and tomorrow.
Yeah, but the 10th we'll play this episode.
We're not live next week. Next week is the 10th. So
well, we're live this week.
We're live on the 3rd.
The 3rd, right. And then because we have Big Dipper and Dominic Burgess.
Yes.
And we need to post that to die.
Well, once this is done, I will. I didn't want to take
away. But I want to redo the graphics so they fit right on Instagram.
Well, then we'll get on that.
Yeah.
Speaking of that, did we get a poster to Western Exposure? I'm
so glad you asked because I just checked with West and he said that it was not too late. So, but
I guess I know what we're doing today after the episode.
Well, no, I have to run and take my truck back after the episode, but I'll circle right back around and then we'll get on it.
All right, we'll see if I have the time then, because I'm preparing to film tomorrow.
Hmm.
That's right, because we have our new series, our series.
Series. Okay. Wow, RuPaul.
Hey, Shirish. Hey, Shirish, tell me what we're shooting to.
Series.
Oh God! Now this is right. I'm using a Mac. So so Siri just popped up on here.
99, and the low will be 76 degrees.
Thanks.
And my Siri says it didn't get that. So
Okay. Well, here we are. It is Saturday.
yes, you asked for
This is
Turner
July
Request.
1st. This is a very special Saturday edition of SideKick Power Hour. My name is Nakia. This is Joshua R. Pangborn, my co-host. We do this every week, and this week we're doing it twice.
Yeah.
Because we love it that much.
But you asked for updates in the Crooniverse, and I can tell you that we heard from the Minnesota Web Fest yesterday.
Ooh.
And the Minnesota Web Fest has officially selected Demon Doctor to be a part of this year's festival. So,
That's
Demon
awesome.
Doctor. That's right. Demon Doctor Season 2 is heading to Minnesota, Duluth, Minnesota specifically.
Okay. That's exciting.
And I also got into Minnesota Web Fest in another project that I did, which if you are following our YouTube page and or have remembered me talking about it on here, I did an actual play, role-playing game called Cult Downfall, and that has been accepted into the Minnesota Web Fest. So I'm in the Minnesota Web Fest for two different projects. One of them I didn't have to spend any time creating except as an actor. So
yay. That's awesome. Good for you.
we also
go ahead.
No, go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say that we're waiting to hear from a bunch of other festivals as well this year. It's been a little. I didn't submit to as many festivals this year because I tried to be more thoughtful about what we submitted to in terms of submitting to things that seem to understand what we do and like what we do. Because sometimes when you submit to festivals, it's a lot of it is. A lot of it is people who don't necessarily get what you do and don't show you the love that you need. And it's not that we need to see love from festivals, but we need, if they're every year they're not going to appreciate us, then there's no point in continuing to submit to them. So
right.
And it's also trying to make sure that we find the right festivals to submit to, because starting hopefully by August, we will be submitting a feature film to festivals. So
we're so close.
We are
getting to the next step.
We are. July 18th will be the big day that I go around to get a couple of shots of B-roll, and then it's in your hands then.
Well, not in my hands.
Well, you're doing part of it.
Part of it, yeah.
And you're monitoring and advising on that second part.
Well, yeah, and that's the plan right now.
Because I cannot add as much info as you can on that, so.
That's true.
You're going to be like, I need to make sure that the boom and the bass and the treble are all shifted to the max, and you know how it is with music and sound and audio.
Yes, I do. Well, I think all of that is true, but you should also bear in mind that hopefully I'll have a reason to be busy for the next month. I'm still waiting to hear back word from my audition that happened on Tuesday.
Really? What was this audition on Tuesday?
I auditioned for Todrick Hall's new musical that he has written and that he is workshopping in Austin with. It's being produced by Hunter Reagan, who I was already friends with and didn't even know that this was happening. And then I just saw it on Todrick's thing. And then when I, put two and two together, I was like, oh, wow, that's really neat.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, I definitely talked myself out of going multiple times in the process. And I think I shared some of that with you.
You did. And I think I talked you into going several times in the process. So.
You did. And I'm glad you did. But, I think it's important to acknowledge that, that super ego, kind of super shitty bully voice that sometimes we can hear in our heads to say, why are you fucking with this? You're too old, or nobody's gonna care, this, that, or the other, or uh, you've got braces, you can't do this, or you're still recovering from your jaw surgery, what all this other stuff. And despite all that, I did go in person, and it was very, very, very refreshing for me. I had a really good time in the whole process, and I met some really nice people. In fact, one of them just commented on something that I posted on Facebook, actually.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, she was super sweet. Her name was Joanna, I think is what her name was.
Like Sweeney Todd's daughter?
Maybe. And then I also met somebody named Sky, and then I met this really great actress. I don't know if her name's on here. Let's see. Her name was, I don't know if it's Courtney Oliver. No. Layla Anastasia Scott, I think is her name.
Interesting.
And she's in this horror movie called Urzuli, I think. Is that how you say that?
It would be Urzuli, yeah, I think.
Yeah. And she told me it's about the original, like, origins of the mermaids, but told from the, like, I think she said South Colombian folklore or something, and how they are, like, they devour people and eat them, but they can be called upon by people who are in need, and then they come help them.
You have me. I'm
Yeah.
very interested. So.
I know, when she told me, I was like, this sounds like something we should watch on Power Hour.
CJ had a quick question. Do we ever get work with Pride festivals? Phoenix has theirs in October.
I have had the pleasure of performing at some Pride festivals, in the same way that I've been booked at, different bear runs and bear events like Western Exposure, and I'm doing Cannonball later this year.
SideKick Productions, however, is not big enough to be noticed.
But we've been talking about this a little bit with the guys from Tidal Wave, or not Tidal Wave, Bigger Vegas, right? Like,
I guess we have.
Get them in a room and corner them and tell them, here's the idea, and let's see what happens.
Yeah, we've been hoping to. We would like to be present at some of these things, but no one has ever asked us. No.
Right, and we're not actively pushing to do it, but we have some ideas.
If you're running a festival or a Pride Fest or a bear run and you want to have SideKick Productions present, reach out and touch someone and find out.
If you or someone you love is running a festival, please call.
We promise we will respond.
All right. Well,
like the Fire Fest, in which case, no, we will not.
We're gonna get James Unsworth in here in just a second. We're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we will be joined by James. Cannot wait to discuss some art and some fatness and queerness and all sorts of things with James. Yeah. So stand by. We will be right back.
Hello? Somebody there? Hey. Who are you?
Harvest? Yes, this symbol is on every single victim.
So it's vengeance you seek.
Nothing about this is fine!
People don't just randomly kill. There has to be a pattern here.
I screwed up big time! I can't find an answer about the scissor slasher, and I can't find an answer about what I am.
That was not my turn.
I trust you. This is terrifying. But fun? Right.
Okay, so maybe I embellished a thing or two on immortality.
With love as well as with magic. There is always a price.
I am very much looking forward to it.
You can stream all episodes of Demon Doctor Season 1 and the Christmas special right now over at demondoctor.com. And you can stream 6 episodes of 5 episodes of Demon Doctor Season 2.
If 6 is out, I didn't know that. So, and that's strange because I put them out. So, but 6 would be out at the end of July. So
It will be. I'm
saying it now to hold us to it because I want to make sure that it's released by the end of July. So, but if you'd like to see it before the end of July, then all you have to do is what, Nakia?
You can go to demondoctor.com.
No, before the end of July.
Oh, if you want to see it before the end of July. Then you'll probably have to come to my house because I'm still working on it. But once it's done, you can see it over at patreon.com/sidekick productions.
Yes, where you can see all things before they come out publicly.
Correct.
Potentially not the movie, though. We'll have to discuss how that's going to work.
Yeah, I think we're gonna have to figure that out for sure.
We might do, maybe we'll do, this is spitballing here, but maybe we'll do a virtual screening like we did for
maybe so.
Thanos.
Maybe so.
Again, you'd have to be on Patreon for that. But
well, we are not on Patreon right this moment, and we are live. This is SideKick Power Hour. This is a weekly live stream that we're turning into a podcast. So we're not sure how you're listening to this right now, but we're glad you're here with us live, and we're glad you're listening to us later. Today's first guest is an artist who I think, I guess, honestly, Josh, I think maybe you did turn me on to James. So why don't you do the introduction?
Sure, absolutely. Although you were touching your heart / his art, so it was very
well. His art is close to my heart.
I feel James on my heart. He's so he touches me. His work touches my chest, literally. No, James is someone that messaged me out of the blue one day on Instagram. Back when I was a young Instagram model. / not a model at all, just on Instagram posting pictures. And James invited me to a project that he was doing. And I said yes. And then the rest is history because I'm constantly watching his amazing pieces that he puts out and he shares all the time. And he is, of course, in one of my favorite parts of the world, the UK. So that makes it even more exciting for me. But anyway, shall we get him in here?
Let's get him in here. It's James Unsworth. We're just going to go on and on about how much we love James Unsworth.
We should probably bring him in here to talk to him.
Hey guys, how you doing?
Good. How are you, James?
Yeah, not bad. Not bad. It's my first podcast kind of thing. So yeah,
this is your first podcast ever?
Yeah.
That is, I think this is I think that's exciting. We've never had a first time. I think.
Oh yeah.
Have we not?
I don't
see
think
how it
so.
goes.
Wow. Okay. This is news. I'm gonna. If you're watching and you remember different, you can comment and let us know. James, welcome.
About your shirt before we even start any, Nakia. I want to know where you can get your shirt.
Well, I can tell you right now that I got it at jamesunsworth.com, and you can get your shirt there. And I'm going to put it in the thing right here.
It's a very wholesome Christian shirt. So.
Great shirt, man. Great choice.
Thank you. James, tell us and really tell our viewers and listeners, kind of introduce yourself and give them a little bit of an idea of who you are.
Yeah, so I'm an artist from the UK. I make work about desire, fatness, masculinity, queerness, often using like reference materials from print history. So my background is in printmaking. So I spend a lot of time researching print history from very early kind of popular print all the way up to, like, I collect lots of like early bear magazines and magazines that cater to the chub chaser community.
Yeah.
So magazines like Bulk Mail, Big
Bulk Mail.
Yes. Bulk Mail is the source of inspiration for pretty much like, I don't know, I'd say like 80% of my work.
Sure.
And also, like the drawing I did of you, Josh, was based on compositions from like ancient Greek ceramics, which I guess is like a bit of a departure because, yeah, that's not related to print history at all. But I just thought it was such good source material. I wanted to do something with it, I suppose.
Well, it's printed on ceramic, so we can work with that.
Yeah. There's always an angle, right? We can always justify it.
Yeah, and you actually, I'm forgetting until I'm looking at it. I'm going to pull it up here so everybody can see. Is it, by the way, James, when I'm sharing it, is it just moving on its own?
Yeah, my website maybe needs to be redesigned, but yeah, there's just like each page.
Okay,
has,
perfect. No, I love it because it that way it can just go while we're talking.
And you can I think you can double click and it'll like make the images bigger.
Okay, great. So, I love this one. Let's see, double click. No,
I love all of them.
Yeah, it's really great to see them. Like there's actually like in some of them, there's like people who are like from different geographical regions who've never met, and yeah, for instance, like this one with the 3 figures in.
Yes.
Yeah, I don't think those people know each other, but in a way, like they were brought together like through this project.
And were all of these people that are depicted here, are these in this work, were they all from real life, or were any of these pulled from things like bulk mail?
They're all people that I've contacted on Instagram. So yeah, I used Instagram like a modern kind of piece of technology,
right?
To combine it with like these kind of ancient compositions, and it would have been yeah, like social media allowed this project to happen in the way that it happened. So with this, I made a different drawing every week throughout the year. So yeah, to kind of set up these photo shoots with these people like in real life, to like travel around just wouldn't have been feasible. So they could have only really happened like in these times, I suppose, when like access to imagery and interconnectivity is like, so fast.
Yeah.
Obviously, you had a lot of people respond yes because we see them. But what was the response like from people when you messaged them? Because it was a very random message I remember getting. It was sort of like, would you pose nude for me for this Greek?
Yeah, and that's, by the way, that's how he turned me on to you. Was he was like, "Well, what do you think I should do?" And I said, "You should do it."
Well, thank you, and thanks for encouraging him. Yeah, you get a mixed response. For some people, it's just something that they don't feel comfortable doing or they're not interested in doing, which is like completely fair enough. Sure. And then for other people, they were like, yeah, brilliant. And then I had people kind of, once the project got started and people started seeing like the results, people would contact me and want to be part of it. So it ended up, I think, it was going to be 52 images in total. I think I ended up making 70.
And there's Josh. And Josh, and he's holding a Skeleton Crew cup, right?
I am, yes.
Yeah.
Or I think it's either Skeleton or SideKick. I can't remember which one it is.
Yeah.
I think it's Skeleton Crew cup, yeah. So yeah, and some of them I like to put kind of like personal like references. Yeah.
I didn't pose with that either, so I was very excited when you put that in there. I was like, oh, this is a very fun addition.
I'm marveling at, now that I'm looking at them in order, how many of the people in your work in this project that I know personally. Like,
yeah, I'm not surprised. Like there is a lot of interconnectivity there, like certainly in the bear or kind of.
I mean, the community is not that large when you think about it. So.
Yeah, true.
Yeah.
Well,
it's really fantastic work.
One sense of the word, at least. So. These are so cool, though. I remember seeing the final collection, and I was like, "Oh, this is amazing."
Yeah, James, I'm glad that you brought up bulk mail because it's one of the things that I wanted to talk to you about specifically, and also to the guest that you'll be shortly overlapping with for just a brief minute, Bearpd, who are made up of 2 people, and I'm very interested in how pornography can inform the visual arts and not just in the sense of recreating what we see in front of us, but also in a way of like bridging different time periods together, like you've done in this piece, or clashing cultures, or things together that don't match at all. And then like the way that you kind of like do the flowers and over the imagery and stuff, but also how it speaks to, for me anyway, I know when I look at it, I think, how much I identify with and appreciate the fact that this the body forms are being celebrated and shown in these different ways, even the ones where you're just ripping people's heads off and whatever it is that's going on. It's just fantastic to see it being utilized in that way. How did it, or when did it even begin to kind of creep into your work, or is that kind of what it sprang from?
So there's like, I guess it's a very linear story here. So when I was like an adolescent, and realizing that I was like attracted to fat men,
sure,
there was no access to that type of imagery. This is like the mid-90s in Liverpool. Okay. So what I would do, I would go to like the porno shop,
right?
Look at all the straight porn, pretend I was interested in that. Then eventually like look at all the gay porn, and then the only gay porn that was available was like mainstream bodies, so like
sure,
muscly guys, skinny guys, whatever. So I would buy one of them, and then, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Sorry, the sound just changed. So yeah, I would buy one of them, take it home, and I would like trace it. I would like draw over it to make my own kind of fat.
Oh wow!
Porn. But I didn't even know what like a nude fat man's body looked like.
Sure.
Like I'd never actually seen it. So I think that's where that kind of desire for that imagery came from. It's like something that was just inaccessible, like didn't exist. There's no representations of, fat male bodies in the media as like being sexy or erotic or desirable. And that's what I already knew, like I desired, but there was literally no information, like pre-internet, that access to that kind of imagery or information, or the idea that a community of people who felt the same as me existed, like was out there. So yeah, that's like from the very beginning, I suppose I've used pornography, and I suppose it's, yeah, it's telling that, I suppose, for a generation of people, or maybe it's still the case, like your first kind of contact with, your own sexuality is through pornographic imagery. And yeah, I wonder what that kind of, how that affects, the way we feel about ourselves, our bodies, and about sex.
Yeah, I remember how kind of profound seeing it, like cartoon pornography that someone had left like in my neighborhood in like a PVC pipe in a ditch, which basically, was probably like, one of the guys in high school, like, or whatever, or even maybe in college, like hiding out in the woods, jerking off and like stashing their porn in there. Right. And so me and some buddies found it, and we were flipping through it, and the best way I can describe it is it was like if Mad Magazine were an adult like XXX thing, like,
oh, okay.
It would have like a New Yorker style or Mad Magazine style cartoon of like a guy doing ice skating, right, and doing a figure eight in the ice and making shapes with the ice or whatever, and then a woman would skate by, and his shape that he would skate would be a hard dick,
right.
But just seeing it presented that way was just like wild. And then the next few weeks later, it would be they would leave straight porn,
Mm-hmm.
and it really had this kind of like, it was a shock, but it was almost like saying like, oh, that's what it is. Okay. It's not as, scary as I thought it was. Just seeing the human body naked. Right. But then like knowing that wasn't quite what I was attracted to, that I was wanting something more. And what you're saying is you kind of took that and made it into what you wanted to see.
Yeah, because there was no alternative. Like it just didn't exist. The first time, pardon me, I saw like a bear porno was in Amsterdam, I guess, when I was like 19. And I was in the closet till I was 24. So I was like on a lad's holiday, Amsterdam 19, like snuck off to, it was next to a club that was called the Cock Ring that doesn't exist anymore. There was like a gay porn shop there, and bought like a bear magazine. And I was like this skinny 19-year-old kid. And I was like trying to speak to the guy behind the counter, like trying to explain what I was looking for, like feeling like proper shy, like proper scared. And they were like super unhelpful, really unfriendly. So I had to just go and like just look around the shop, like
Right.
on the clock, like trying to get back to my mates before they noticed.
Right.
Buy like a bear porno, which I mean, even bear porn I wasn't massively interested in, because I like, guys who were bigger than
Sure.
most of the guys were in bear porn.
Right.
So I found one which had like a bigger guy, like a fatter guy in, rolled it around like my leg and tucked it into my sock and smuggled it back to the UK. And, like, just like terrified that I would be like outed.
Sure.
I was so desperate for this like imagery of like nude fat men, like the lengths I had to go through. I don't think in the age of the internet, people will quite be able to understand that,
Oh, that's what I was just thinking. I was thinking, how many people today who might be watching this, or even not, anybody in the world, or anybody who grew up today, this is such an unrelatable problem for them. And that's one of the things I think is so exciting about growing up for queer youth today, is that they have access to so many things that we never did growing up.
Yeah, absolutely. But then I think that like being somebody who's interested in print culture and like a printmaker, like that totally feeds back into like the scarcity of that imagery, and like it being like an artifact, and it,
right,
kind of like those magazines were the way that communities formed before the internet, like the personal pages and like the kind of information about like parties and community events.
Send a self-addressed stamped envelope for this, and then you'll get like some flyers or brochures, the Girth and Mirth clubs, or the the Chub Chaser clubs that you would sign up for over the internet. I mean, over post office, basically. Snail.
So, it was print that that did that. I suppose that was the only way for those things to happen back then, I guess. But all very like I mean, I was too young to really like do those personal ads and stuff, but I can imagine you would like reply to a personal ad, and then like the week later you would get a reply, and you mightn't even like really be into this person, and you're just like, okay, shall I bother replying back? Like the whole process must have been so long-winded and like probably largely unsuccessful. I don't know.
Well, as someone who used those personals, who's 48 years old and did use written personals, I can tell you it took a long time.
I bet. I bet.
And I can also tell you that even at the beginning of the internet, I was on the internet in like 94, 95, and then everything took forever. Downloading an image that easily you could post on Instagram and it would be there in less than a second. It's easily a 30-minute ordeal.
Yeah, I remember those days as well.
Yeah. So it is very interesting to me. Yeah. Very, very interesting to me how that has played into your work, James. And I'm fascinated as well by your work and interest in and studies of printmaking, and I'm very curious if because I fancy myself both a poster collector, as long as I can remember. I've always loved posters. If we zoom out for a second on just me, you can see some of them around the pink one over here over this shoulder. That was probably maybe a few of those were ever even printed, and I found that on the street, and it was just so cool. The one above it was hanging up, and it's printed on this cardboard stuff, and it's, again, I just found it on the street, and I was like, who puts this quality of art in the street? Like, I would take it, So I'm curious if in your studies and research, if you've ever looked into any of the poster artists or printmakers from Austin, Texas, from the late 60s, early 70s?
I mean, I'm probably familiar with like the imagery, like the iconography, but posters isn't really my area. Like I've always collected comic books and I collect books. But yeah, I guess the only real person who was like involved in making posters that I'm familiar with would be Tadanori Yoku, who's like a Japanese artist. But yeah, my specialism is definitely like collecting comic books, and that's where probably my interest came from. It's like just being a kid. We've got a comic book over here called the Beano, which is just like what you get like if you're a preteen, and it's like, yeah, just kind of fun, like age appropriate stories, and it's like a weekly like subscription thing. So that's what got me kind of hooked on print culture, I suppose, and art and all of that kind of stuff. I think I could maybe trace it back to then, and then obviously like branching out into different like other types of publications as like I grew up. But yeah, poster art, yeah, not really my area.
Yeah. What about as far as, you know, actually making prints? At what age were you making prints?
So I went to like art school, so like we didn't have printmaking facilities in school.
Right.
So when I did art foundation at the age of 18, I managed to fail art foundation and then like had to redo the year. It's really difficult to fail art foundation, but I managed to do it. And the second year, I basically had all the points to like pass, but I had to like do another year. So the second year, I just spent a lot of time like screen printing, like just working in the screen printing room. So I would have been like 19 then. And yeah, I don't know why it appealed. I think like the flatness of the color in screen print like is really similar to the flatness of the color in like comic books. And yeah, there was just like an affinity, I suppose, like the way that you like built that image up in layers, and the way that it was quite heavily process based, and it's like quite controllable in a way that like painting isn't. Like painting's really like fluid and open, and you don't know when it's finished. Like with screen printing, it's like quite a solid, you know, layered process based thing that like appealed to me, I guess.
Yeah. And was there a particular like medium of print that you preferred? Correct me if I'm wrong, but like you're talking about screen printing. Are you screen printing, you know, actual prints more often, or did you also get into screen printing shirts or fabric or any of that sort of stuff?
Yeah, it's mostly on paper, but I guess like when I went to art school, like there was experimental stuff. So I was like screen printing on like pieces of ham and like just lots of different materials, like using screen printing to do things that you couldn't really do any other way. So I developed this technique where it would kind of like, how would you describe it? Basically like you would print everywhere but the line of the image that you want to see, but print that onto like a reflective surface. So it looks like the reflective surface is the printed part, but it's actually like the rest of like the negative space. So it was fun to like experiment and kind of try and push. Like print has a very traditional kind of twee image, I suppose, and it's definitely like not the sexy, like exciting department in the art school. You know, it's like the kind of the boring kind of place where like the weirdos go who like can't get onto the painting course. So it's like it was interesting to try and see what print could do with like modern materials and kind of try and like do something kind of interesting and exciting with print.
So you were you mentioned something earlier about oh goodness, I forgot how it came up, but it kind of sparked this thought that Joshua and I were pondering on earlier, and we wanted to ask both of our guests today about, and that's AI and you know what your views are on AI, you know, in art in general. Are you dabbling in it? Tell us what your thoughts are.
It's something that I'm just not that interested in. But I think it is. So I saw there's a couple of Instagram accounts who are like making AI, making images of like bigger bodies. So they've made like a few like ancient Roman, ancient Greek kind of statues, bigger bodies. And that's an idea of something that I've wanted to do.
Right.
Like, an idea that I've been like, playing with in my head for like years.
Sure.
But now they have somebody has the ability to make that very quickly, to visualize that really, really quickly. And I don't know. It's like, that's probably a good thing, I guess. But yeah, I just don't find it that interesting.
Yeah.
And I don't have like a strong opinion one way or another.
Right.
But I know people who are like writers who are like terrified of Chat GPT or whatever it's called.
Right.
Yes, I am one of them.
But I don't think that kind of imagery that AI can make, I don't think that can replace like human creativity. And I think perhaps because my work is like kind of erotic and some of it's like really graphic, like the AI can't make that work anyway.
Sure.
That's forbidden.
We actually, there are safety things in place. They won't even permit you to do that. So
that's a really good point. I'm sure that long term there'll be ways around that sort of stuff, and the access to high level machines will probably become easier, hopefully, if it's more democratized.
Well, I think it's happening in video because I think people have been having issues with deep faking and pornography.
Right. I'm sure that's certainly an issue I've seen, for sure, and I'm sure it's only going to get worse, to be honest, because as the technology grows, there's always going to be folks who want to jerk off to something. So that's there's just. As I like to tell people, the best example of this in pop culture is Tropic Thunder, where they talk about the real life way that pornography essentially has led the movie industry in formats for years. So long before the major studios were using Betamax or VHS, the pornographers were doing it. Before they were doing, DVDs, pornographers were doing it, Blu-ray. Really, in Tropic Thunder, what the joke is that they decided between HD, DVD, and Blu-ray, and it's actually true. It's because the pornographers were invested more in Blu-ray. Because HD DVD actually had some pretty damn cool features if you think about it. But anyway, my point is that the AI stuff at some point will become very easily accessible for pornographers to use in lots of different ways.
I think perhaps it's just like a new category. Like, I don't think digitally created imagery can replace the experience of going to a gallery and seeing paint on canvas. So like, perhaps if your work is like, you're an illustrator or something, can you do stuff which is like, online, then AI might be a threat to like what you're doing. But it's like, there's lots of different types of art. There's lots of different type of art world. So AI is just an other, that imagery is just another type of imagery. Like, I don't think it's going to replace, every other type of imagery. It's not. It doesn't have that interest involved.
Well,
in it.
The other thing it doesn't have is the collectible part. Like I think we learned from NFTs that it's hard to kind of quantify and really truly value a piece of data, basically. Ones and zeros. And I think that, this gets to another question that Joshua and I wanted to talk to you about, which is, what are your views on, museums, like, art in museums versus people who own art versus people and don't put it in museums, and people like David Bowie who were like really passionate about loaning their collections to people. Like, really passionate about the collection process, but then making sure that it was being seen by people.
Yeah, I mean, obviously that's the most altruistic way to collect your own art, but if you're mega wealthy, like, you don't have to worry about that, do you? You can do what you want with your property, I suppose.
Right.
Yeah, I guess the question is like, who culturally significant objects like belong to, like, can they belong to individuals, or should they, belong to like civilization? I don't know, but we live in capitalism, so you can buy whatever you want and do whatever you want with it. It doesn't matter what you think about it,
Yeah, and again, I think it's kind of funny that also is a direct line to NFTs, right? Like, people just buy anything, right? Like,
but again, like, I would imagine it's the same with like music. You look on your Spotify, it's a very different experience to, like, I went to a friend's house the other day and he had like a massive CD collection.
Nice.
And it's been ages since I'd like looked through a CD collection, and you have to, like, you miss stuff, so you have to go back and scan it. Whereas like looking for stuff on Spotify, it's like you just type it in and you find it. And it's probably the same with NFTs. Like, you've just got these like images on a screen, and that doesn't fulfill that like weird human desire to like collect stuff and like have stuff around you and have
it's
stuff in
also
your space and go to show it, Yeah, absolutely.
You want to touch it,
something real that exists. And I think that's like on a kind of primate level, like that's about like having things and being successful and surviving and having like nice things that make you feel good. And I don't know if like NFTs kind of tick that box for people. I'm not sure.
And also, as we've learned from the recent streaming wars, that if you stream something, it can disappear very quickly because half of people's animation work has disappeared from HBO Max, and your Star Trek Prodigy show, Nakia, is disappearing from Paramount.
I saw that.
And so, I mean, and it's very things that you don't own can disappear very quickly when they're in the collective. Well, you're still owning them because you're renting them through a streaming service subscription, but also at the same time, living in New York, as I do, having a collection of DVDs or CDs is very hard. So it's been nice having streaming, because I don't have to have a whole wall dedicated to all the DVDs I want to collect and everything.
Mm-hmm.
So it's frustrating in that sense. Like, I get wanting to own physical media, but at the same time, I'm also like, well, I have more space now.
There's pros and cons, right?
Yeah,
for sure. We're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we will be getting into something that Joshua and I want to talk to you about, James, and that is your love of Ninja Turtles and how it connects to the various aspects of your life. If you're just joining us, this is SideKick Power Hour. My name is Nakia. This is Joshua R. Pangborn to my right, and over there, that is James Unsworth, all the way from what part of the UK are you in again?
So I live in Manchester at the minute. I'm from Liverpool, but now I live in the wonderful Manchester, which is an hour away.
Gotcha. And then we're also gonna circle back to one other thing, and that is my connection to some of your models, because some of them live over there, and I'm curious how many of them you know in person. Let's take a look at the short film that the movie that Joshua and I just wrapped and are currently in post for is based on. This is the trailer for Wasted on the Young.
You're 15 minutes late.
Jesus, where did you come from?
Time. It's such a pity when people waste it. I hate that. Time is so precious. Isn't that right, Mateo?
Woo! Wasted on the Young, which has now been out 2 years.
We did it the fall of 2020, so it's been out for two and
a half years.
Yeah.
Wow.
Because we did it the fall October of 2020 when we were bored because we were all sitting around just twiddling our thumbs for some reason in 2020. Don't know what it was, but
yeah, we got so much done though.
We did. It was the first time I said this the other day at work. Actually, it's the first time since I started working after college that I had a summer vacation because I'm not allowed to take days off in the summer, so I've never, ever had a summer vacation in the 18 years that I've worked at this location. So I've never had a summer holiday, and I don't know. I don't know if I ever will until I'm too old to enjoy them. Dead. So,
hang on one second.
Why can't you take a summer holiday?
It's a blackout period at the school that I work at, so we're not allowed to take summer holidays. So
right. Unlucky.
I've never had a summer holiday. I've never had a summer vacation. Okay, I think this is going to be a good song. So that sentiment.
I'm glad my pain and suffering make your music better. So that's how music is born, from pain and suffering.
It's funny. Last Saturday. Wait, what's today? No, last Thursday, I started a song that was born out of my personal pain, and it was like.
Was it called Josh?
No. It's the first line of the song was, between the heat and the hatred, Texas is trying to kill me.
That's a good line. And after yesterday, even more accurate. So
well, yesterday, now it's the whole fucking country. But
we're just gonna move to the UK with you, okay, James? We're gonna just
But is it much better over there? I mean,
things aren't great here, man.
You have the NHS, so at least there's healthcare.
The NHS is on its arse, man. The Tories have been bleeding it dry for a long time, so
yeah,
it's not great times here either, unfortunately.
Yeah. How does that play into your art? Like, how does politics? I mean, I think just in nature of the fact of the subjects that you portray is obviously the art is almost always political in some way. But how does it inform what you're doing now, or what, do you think it's changed how you're working?
I think, I guess my work is like small p political because it's about like representation and about queerness and just exposing people to ideas that people are different from them, and there are minority sexualities is political in the world we live in. Right. But I don't think that my work has affected on a direct kind of day-to-day kind of level by politics. It's kind of outside of that, I suppose. So the references are before like current times, so it's not like I'm reacting to things that are happening like in the world today. I guess like things do filter in, but a lot of my work is about like nostalgia and references and things that I remember from like the past, so it's not exactly about the current times.
I think like I said, I think your work inherently like is political because it's queer and it's fat, and which is just two things that are not that need to be protested for rights for. But I think you probably don't do things like you don't do something with Boris Johnson as your centerpiece or something like that. So
no, I wouldn't want to look at an image of Boris Johnson, so I wouldn't like to work on an image of Boris Johnson. But
I think that you and I are political in that same way, because I used to say that I'm not a political content creator. I don't make films or television that are political, but then especially post Donald Trump, I realized that just inherently existing and creating the work that we do is political in that sense. So I don't make references to contemporary political issues and situations generally, but just by existing, I think that and by making it work.
Don't you though? I mean, like, think about the HIV status stuff and the way you address trans pronouns and acceptance. I mean, it is kind of.
But I don't think that's. Again, I don't think that is specifically like a modern political thing. I think that's how we should have always been.
I agree. I'm just saying it. Just from the behind the scenes, I think that I've always at least felt like that you were purposefully threading those things in. Maybe you're doing it unconsciously.
I might be. I don't know. I might. What I am consciously doing now, and I've just is pretty much. I will only make characters who are queer, and unless I have a good reason to make a heterosexual character, I'm just not going to do it. I just don't see a need for it or a reason to do it, and yeah, that's pretty much everything I make is pretty much going to be exclusively queer focused. So
there's lots of heterosexual characters out there already, right?
Yeah,
there are plenty of them. They've had 5,000 years of history or whatever it is. I don't know how many years. I can't count anymore. So.
James, you were talking about how your work is so based in nostalgia, and that seems like a great time to bring up Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Something that I grew up. I was born in '75. I'm definitely more of a child of the '80s, but I was, my brother's babysitter for most of the early '90s, right, and lived through all of that stuff too. So, big Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles fan. So, what drew you to the Mutant Ninja Turtles, and why?
So I was born in 1979, so I was like the target age for the Ninja Turtles when they became like massive in 88 to 89. I was like 8-9 years old. So yeah, I was just like a super big fan. And it was like an obsession. It was like this huge thing. Like it was social death if you didn't like the Ninja Turtles in school. So you like had to be into it, like, or you weren't cool. So yeah, like as an adult, like looking back, I realized that was the first time that I'd been like aggressively marketed towards. So there's like all these like substandard food products which had like pictures of Ninja Turtles on that I would like pester my mum to buy for me. And, they were like super expensive, like super low quality. And like, yeah, I was being marketed towards, like I was buying into this, like this huge thing that I didn't really understand. So yeah, I guess looking back at the Ninja Turtles, like cynically, I was looking at a lot of historical popular print images, and they focus on the grotesque. So the grotesque is like a combination of horror and humor, stuff that doesn't really go together. So I figured that a good expression of that kind of incongruity would be to have the Ninja Turtles and kind of like super sexual, super violent kind of imagery. So kind of using something pop cultural that everybody's familiar with, but presenting it in like an unexpected way, I suppose. And then on one level, I thought, this is just super flippant. This is like a joke. It's like really daft. So I was like speaking to people and like hoping that people would like talk me out of it. But the more I spoke about it, the more it kind of felt like a good idea, I suppose. So like the Ninja Turtles are all named after like great master artists, right?
Right.
They I don't know. Yeah, it just felt like the right thing. And the way I work is like I just try and follow like whatever the path I feel like I should be going on is, and like that just felt like the right thing to do. It was like my first idea, and I just went with it.
I noticed that the first image of the Ninja Turtles I showed, where it looked like there were actual humans in kind of wrap and things to look like Ninja Turtles with large penises and big bushes. kind of reminded me of what I had seen you do with what appears to be Bart Simpson.
Yeah. This is just packing tape, and a ping pong balls cut in half.
Gotcha.
The turtle dicks were like big bottles of mayonnaise, and the bushes were like a wig that I'd cut up. So they're like super cheap, like super shitty materials. But I think through like the cheapness and the shittiness of it, it gives it like this quite unnerving quality. Like it's, I don't know, they're just like creepy in a way that if they were like made from maybe better materials or like they looked more realistic, I don't think they would be as creepy. I don't reckon.
Yeah, if you kind of went more dark with this into the horror side of things, the way that you're using the packing tape and the way that it kind of almost looks like wrinkled flesh, you know, it could be really, really creepier than it already kind of has that little bit of creep vibe to it, you know?
Yeah, and I like to make a balance. Like I think if it was all just like horrific or if it was all just like funny, then it would be really easy to read and not as interesting. I like there to be like that combination, like the horror and the humor. So it's like a bit more nuanced or takes you a little bit more time to kind of work out what you're looking at.
Right. And you, speaking of the horror kind of cross section, you know, you were talking earlier about how, you know, you're not just all, you know, kind of erotic, naked male form. Sometimes your stuff can be very graphic and have, you know, violent imagery and such. Have you found any issues with sharing any of this type of work on public forums like Instagram and spaces like that?
Yeah, my work is removed from Instagram all the time. Like Instagram used to be an interesting place for artists, I think, and people who took photographs, like photographers, but it's turned into what it's turned into. And I understand, like, I don't want people who are too young to see my work, but I just wish there was like a social media for adults who want to look at art. And then there can be a social media for like younger people who can look at, I don't know what they were like, each other's dinner or whatever they want to look at. But yeah, I understand that. Yeah, safeguarding has to happen. I don't want to expose people to my work who are like too young to see my work.
Sure.
Well, it's really hard, especially for people like you and us who make sexually charged work that's not necessarily pornographic, but is definitely in the world of celebrating sexuality. And I think that's the kind of work that's very easy for, at least in the US. I don't know if it's happening in the UK, but in the US, for people to just throw the label groomer on and to say, look at you, you're corrupting our youth, and how dare you? I mean, the same arguments that they've been around for hundreds of years for what the gays are doing, but
right.
But it's hard to make that work that we do and not and also walk that line of not corrupting people. So
yeah, it's bullshit, man. It's pure hypocrisy.
Absolutely, yes.
When you can go on Instagram and see people get the shit kicked out of them, people getting killed, like kind of the moral kind of outrage about sexuality or, you know, minority sexuality. I mean, I guess some of my stuff is pretty weird, to be fair, but there's,
like, it has a unique point of view and a unique voice that I don't think I've seen really from other people. So,
but these are artworks, and people get morally indignant about the horror or the sexuality in an artwork.
Right.
I think sometimes more vehemently than the horror in reality. You know, like we see horror every day, like real horror. So I mean, why people get so upset about depictions of that horror, or, you know, people making work that's trying to discuss that or work it out for themselves.
Yeah. You know, as for me as a songwriter, like talking about the lyrics that I shared a minute ago, between the heat and the Texas, or between the heat and the hatred, Texas is trying to kill me. Right. it's very easy for me to just put a point right on the issue and how I'm feeling, right? Anybody who lives in Texas that's queer would immediately know what I was talking about. But I don't think that today's there's a lot of things that I feel like are missing from people's ability to comprehend art, you know, and take it in, because they stripped so much away from education years ago and made art such a low part, if at all, of the process, that no one really knows how to truly like even really take art in and experience it, you know, because and then when they see stuff, they're either shocked or scared by it, or in most cases probably like really excited, and maybe in some cases turned on, and then terrified at the same time. Which is great. That, you know, art is supposed to help us to, you know, experience ourselves and understand ourselves better, and also just to just be. And I really wish that we had more emphasis on that. And I think when we get Bearpd in here, who will be up just shortly after our next break, I think it's something that I want to talk to you about, you know, what your views are on, you know, trying to, you know, I guess, or looking back at what your experience was and how it portrayed it, or how, you know, helped you become an artist, and what you think is kind of like lacking in the world today in that respect. So something for you to ruminate on as we go into our next break. Everybody, if you're just joining us, oh wait, we have a comment.
Yeah, I guess people are checking out your website. So James, you have a Toshio Saeki inspired book, CJ says. He's very excited by that.
So yeah, one of my books, Fat Guys Are the Worst, has backgrounds which are like inspired by Toshio Saeki, and the color palette is all like inspired by Toshio Saeki. But yeah, he's a big influence, an amazing artist.
And for those of us like me who might not know who he is, what about him is influential to you or inspiring to you?
So he's like a Japanese iroguro artist, like a master woodcutter, and he made these really incredible, sexual, violent, but not graphic, like very suggestive images. He's like a straight guy. He passed away a few years ago, so he was like operating in the 70s, 60s, late 60s, I think, is like when his career started. But I saw his book in the Palais de Tokyo in Paris, and it's like something that I just couldn't forget because I'd never seen anything like it before. It's like the type of work that I wanted to make. I wanted to have that kind of impact on people, to see something and it be so powerful and so fucked up that you'd like never forget it, basically.
I mean, I think you've accomplished that. I know I can recognize that very, very readily. So
I'm glad. That's what I wanted to do.
We are going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we're going to be joined by Bearpd. These are a couple of guys that I adore. I've had the pleasure of owning some of their work for the better part of now 11 or 12 years, and then randomly ended up, of course, meeting them through the internet, and then connecting through Western Exposure. We're all going to get there together right after this break. If you're just joining us, this is SideKick Power Hour. My name is Nakia.
I'm Josh.
I'm James.
We are going to be right back after we take a look-see at this week's Patreon exclusive. I'm going to share it here today while we take a quick break. This is the song that I would have sang had I been voted through to the top 4 on my season of The Voice. And this is the lyric video for that in this week's exclusive Nakia Club post. So take a listen. We're going to go full screen on this, and then we're going to
Every day's getting tougher.
You're muted.
That would have not been the song that I sang. That was the wrong song. That was the song that I wrote for a cable company.
It was still a lovely song that started out that way.
I'm sure, but it was not what we needed. So stand by.
My nights grew colder. Hey, what you did to me. I went through days without knowing why my nights grew colder. Hey, what you did to me.
I think Nakia has uploaded the preview for it as opposed to the actual song, but that's okay. While we wait for Nakia to return, there's Nakia running back here right now. He's shaking his head now at me in the green room saying, Josh, curse the world, or something. I don't know what he's saying because he's in the green room and I can't read his mind. I think he's going to try this one.
My nights grew colder. Hey, what you did to me. You always had a quick alibi. Someone waiting in line. Now you wanna run back to me. But I know that you were lying, and you do it so gracefully. Save it for the next fool who says he loves you. Save it for someone with a heart to spare. Cause let's face it, your lies are wasted on someone like me, yeah. Oh, save it for the next fool who thinks he needs ya. Maybe he'll do better than me. Oh, darling, save it. Oh, baby, save it for the next fool. Excuses don't amuse me. I know that you use me till I'm all used up. Now I'm older and I'm wiser, and I don't wanna fight you. It's a battle that I just can't win. But I know that you were lying, and you do it so gracefully. But save it for the next fool who says he loves you. Save it for someone with a heart to spare. Cause let's face it, your lies are wasted on someone like me, yeah. Oh, save it for the next fool who thinks he needs ya. Maybe he'll do better than me. Oh, baby, save it. Oh, baby, save it for the next fool. Save it for the next fool. Baby, for the next fool. Baby, you understand why you have to break your heart all the time. All the time. Save it for the next fool who says he loves you. Save it for someone with a heart to spare. Cause let's face it, oh baby, save it for the next fool. Yeah. for the next fool who thinks he needs you. Maybe he'll do better than me. Oh, darling, save it. Oh, baby, save it for the next fool. You better save it for the next fool. Save it for the next fool. You better save it for the next fool. For the next fool.
Boom. So that, Josh, would have been my top 4 song. And I tell the whole story over at my Patreon, patreon.com/Nakia. We are here at SideKick Power Hour. It's Saturday, July 1st. Thank you, Jalen. Appreciate that. Thank you so much.
I mean, I like it too, if it helps.
Thank you so much. My name is Nakia.
I'm Josh.
Hello. We've been speaking with James Unsworth from he's joining us, I believe, from Manchester today is what he said. And we are now going to be joined by James and Bearpd. And we're going to get into who Bearpd is and all of that stuff. So without further ado, let's welcome back James and then introduce Bearpd.
Hey. Hello.
Hello.
Hey.
Hello, boys. And where are y'all reaching us from today?
Santa Cruz, California.
Nice.
Officially the most expensive place to live in the country.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
That's wonderful. It's not New York anymore. Thank goodness.
Yeah.
Well, I know that Austin is now like the 10th fastest growing city in the country or something. I forget, but it's kind of scary at the same time because it's also getting super expensive here. I came home from picking up smoothies the other day and I didn't even notice because I had done it through the app. I didn't even notice until I got home that the 2 smoothies and 2 waffles that I got were like $35. And I was like, wait a minute. Where was I? Was I in this alternate universe? It's
2 smoothies and 2 waffles in New York. That's cheap. So
yeah, I was gonna say.
Yeah, it was
warning about your low cost of living, Nakia.
Manchester's cheap, but it rains all the time, so you have to contend with that.
I love rain. So see, the more I hear about it, the more I'm just gonna move in with you, James.
Come over, man.
Well, welcome to the show, boys, and all the way from California. As I mentioned a minute ago, James is in Manchester today. Why don't you? We're going to get into the about Bearpd stuff and a little bit more in depth in your own segment of the show. But while we've got you both here, all 3 of you here, we thought it would be great to find out a couple of things. Number one, were either of you already familiar with each other's work, and had you already been in touch with each other?
Yeah, I'm familiar with your guys' work for sure. I think I follow you on Instagram, but I don't think we've spoken before.
Yeah, same. I'm like familiar visually with the work, but we've never talked before. But it's a good pairing because James's stuff is like kind of gritty and textural, and I'm like all about just like mostly clean lines and like very sparse kind of detail. So it's interesting dialogue for sure.
But yeah, I think we cover the same kind of kind of bodies and the same kind of subjects. So yeah, it's there's definitely a relationship there.
Yeah, totally.
When earlier, one of the things that came up in our discussion with James that I really wanted to continue when we got you guys over here was kind of how pornography informed his early work and how like being exposed to pornography, should we say, and how kind of like at the early days of like the internet and things, but and even before the internet for some of us, how difficult, seeing the types of bodies that we were attracted to or that we were ourselves, in any kind of pornography was next to zero, and even just getting any pornography was kind of hard sometimes. So how has that been experienced for you guys working in this stuff? How did pornography kind of inform what you do?
My biggest inspiration is this painter Botero. He's like from Spain, but he draws like these big chubby naked bodies, which growing up, my mom just had them all over the walls for some reason. So that was like the closest thing to pornography that I initially saw, because it is pornographic. I mean, a lot of his work is really sexual.
Right.
But otherwise, yeah, it was just really, really bad dial-up. Like, I lived kind of in the countryside in Southern California, so I had worse than the bare minimum internet at the time.
Right.
Growing up in the early 90s. And yeah, I looked at porn like coming in line by line on the computer, just like load all the way, and oftentimes it like stopped right before it got to the dick or whatever. So I'm like, okay,
that's familiar.
Yeah. I actually I read a lot of my porn when I was younger, which was great because on a dial-up, like a text file will load instantly. So you're like, cool, I've got 30 minutes of material to back off to or whatever.
Right. Yeah. What was the name of that website? I swear it was like nothing but erotic stories, and it was like just there were so many of them, and I can't remember what it was.
I can tell you what it was called. It's called nifty.org, and it's still
okay, that's it. Yeah.
But there were some specific bear ones as well, and it was one of the few places where I saw like larger bodies celebrated sort of conceptually in the way that I appreciated them, because the descriptions of like what was attractive about them was like, oh my God, me too. There's this dating site called Bear Forest that also
I remember that. Yeah.
Stories section that I was really into.
Didn't the Bear Forest guys, weren't they the ones who spun off into like bear bondage? And it was the same guys, and so it would be like they would do a spread for Bear Forest, and then you'd see them like all bound up in bear bondage. Yeah. I think the other thing that I wanted to touch on for both of you was, in the case of James's project, where the work he did with the Greco-Roman plates, we were talking earlier about how each one of those people was a real life person. For instance, Joshua was one of the models for that project that he contacted through the internet. Y'all have a different thing. You kind of have the bubs, as you've called them. Where did that come from, and how does that differ? And did you have like someone besides those original, Spanish artists inspirations? Was there someone in real life that kind of inspired these bubs?
Yeah, I mean, like as Jordan and I have gotten to know each other and like sharing our sexual history and stuff, like I realized I was, I guess, lucky in that I experienced a lot of stuff like firsthand and not in my imagination. Like I just like started having sex and messing around with people pretty early. And one of my first like sexual awakening moments was seeing this guy. It was like a wall builder that was like working in an avocado orchard next door, and he had this jack off spot underneath an avocado tree. And as a 6-year-old, I like climbed over the wall and just like watched him.
Right.
And then after he left, I like went to his spot, and he like had all these dirty magazines just kind of like on the ground amongst the avocados. And so that's like just this image that's in my head that's really abstract. But I feel like most of the drawings that I do are based on this one person who I can barely remember. And then just kind of like a collage of all the sexual experiences I've had in my head. And I don't look at references ever really. I will ask people, including Jordan, to pose sometimes just to like get a sense of how the body works. But otherwise it's just kind of this like Cronenbergian like nightmare of flesh in my head that I transpose into something a little more discernible, I guess.
Nice.
And I think that's another nice juxtaposition between the two of you, because James, everything you do is pretty much based in reference photos and everything. Yes.
Yeah. I always work from like art historical references or print history references, and it's very process based. So yeah, very the way that you work sounds like really nice and free, and it must be like enjoyable. Right, sometimes I feel like my process is like quite I don't know, difficult sometimes. It's like heavy.
Yeah, I have a really weird process in that I kind of just like draw the same thing over and over again until it looks right to me, and oftentimes it's like not proportionally right or anything, but it just feels like aesthetically correct somehow. And how I started was I worked in an office at this really boring job in upstate New York, and we had like a bunch of printer paper just laying around. I had like a shit ton of free time at work. And so I would just draw something on a piece of printer paper and then lay another one on top and then trace over it again and like keep doing that over and over again until like it felt clean or like it felt, aesthetically where I wanted it to be. So yeah, I just like have a habit of like tracing over my own work over and over, basically, is the process for me.
And both of you work a lot with, I think almost exclusively with the male form in most cases. When was that in your process that started? Like, was that something early on for both of you that, like, that's how your art started? You're like, I'm going to do these pieces of art about the male form, or did you start with other depictions and things that you were focused on, and then the male form evolved out of that? I mean, I know, James, you said you created your own pornography basically when you were younger, but when you actually started saying, I'm going to be an artist.
Yeah, when I was in art school, I definitely wasn't making work about big, fat, sexy men. Like I was in the closet till I was like 24. So all the way through like my art foundation, my BA and my MA, I guess I was like tiptoeing up to it. So it was bodily. It was I was doing lots of research into like the grotesque and the carnivalesque. So it was like there was nudity and there was like bodies, but it wasn't explicitly like celebratory or about my like actual interests, about the actual work that I wanted to make. So it was like adjacent to that, I suppose.
Okay.
Yeah, and for me, I went to school for a totally different medium, which was photography. And it was film photography, and then film as a medium died out really quick, and I sort of lost interest in it, and then got a job as a graphic designer for New York State that I was talking about that was really boring, and just started to kind of like learn aesthetic sensibilities of like color and composition through graphic design, and then really, I mean, I like doodled when I was a kid, but I didn't take it seriously at all. And then at this job, I just had like fuck off time at my desk, so I just started drawing naked dudes because I was horny at work, and yeah, it went from there. But I didn't like go through a process of being like, okay, now I'm going to do gay stuff. It really started from like a very horny place,
right?
So
yeah, and doing horny artwork is new for me. I don't do a lot of like figurative drawing myself. I mostly help with the production of the stuff, but my background is in like abstract visual art and sound. So going into visual arts is like a kind of newer thing for me.
Interesting. The other interesting thing about each of you, which by the way, I just realized we've been in here now for like a hot minute. And I don't think that I ever said before, when you guys got in here, that this is Jordan and Patrick. I keep just saying Bearpad art, but I think most people kind of in public are probably that don't know you anyway do that anyway.
Yeah.
But you know, the thing with the art and the tracing before you guys got in here, James we were talking about like how we first experienced pornography, and one of the things he was talking about was taking pornographic magazines home and then tracing over the bodies but turning them into fat people. You know, and before he even really knew what fat people kind of even looked like naked. So he was, you know, just kind of learning the whole process. And what you were saying was essentially almost the same thing. You were basically repeating until you got it right and created what you wanted to see, you know. And I think Joshua does this a lot in his work as well. And we haven't really touched a lot on this yet, but I want to before we say goodbye to James in the next 3 minutes. Joshua, you kind of, again, earlier you were saying like, oh, you didn't purposefully put political stuff in, but you absolutely purposefully put in, you know, kind of bits and pieces of the world around you into what you create. Mm-hmm. And I'm wondering, you know, knowing how you shot Skeleton Crew over the course of 5 seasons, can you kind of see the direct line to like tracing the same thing over and over again until you get what you want? Because that's kind of how you were growing as a filmmaker, even.
Well, I think so. I mean, I like both Bearpad and James. I didn't start out making exclusively fat and queer art. I didn't, when I was writing stories and writing plays and I didn't think I'm going to make sure that they're fat queer characters that I'm writing, because I didn't think that was an option, really. I mean, that was just sort of you didn't make that in school. You just made love stories. You made stories about adapting fairy tales. You didn't make fat queer celebratory characters. Maybe you do now, but not back then. So I think that there was a process of evolving and realizing that I wanted to make what I wanted to see on screen from there. And the tracing aspect, I think, is an interesting idea. I don't necessarily. I guess maybe from the outside you can see that that's what it is. I don't think I was consciously doing that kind of thing, but
yeah. Well, I mean, essentially, tracing is the same as practice. Kind of right, like you're doing the same thing over and over again. And so while the story wasn't always the same, and even maybe the setups weren't always the same, just the repetition of doing it until you got the things that you wanted, and you are still doing, basically, you know, as you continue to grow, right?
Well, that's essentially that is exactly what rehearsal is. Yes, when you're filming, when you're doing theater, especially, it's just repeating the thing over and over again until you're like, oh, I'm happy with it now. Now we can show it to the audience.
Sure.
Although usually you don't get happy with it, and it's just you still have to show it to the audience because there's a deadline. But
we are going to say goodbye to James. Let's remind folks again where you can find James, and we pull that up right here. Where did it go? There it is. JamesUnsworth.com or at James Unsworth on Instagram. Mm-hmm. James, what a pleasure to have you with us.
Yeah, thanks very much, man. I enjoyed that much more than I thought I would. This is my first podcast. I was kind of dreading it as someone who's usually on their own in the studio. And yeah, not like a performer like you guys. I was, yeah.
Well, you showed up with a great microphone setup. You showed up with great lighting. You were interesting to talk to. You were funny. So I think you did pretty good.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
We're glad to make it as painless as possible for you. So.
Yeah, I'm pleasantly surprised.
And we hope that you will join us again sometime in the future. What do you have that people should be watching for that's coming out, or something that's just come out that you want people to pay attention to?
What am I doing? I'm going to do Glasgow Zine Fest next week. So next weekend, Glasgow Zine Fest is happening. And then I'm going to be back at Athens Art Book Fair, which is in September. But yeah, if you're just interested in what I've been waffling on about, you can follow my Instagram, and I post on there pretty regularly.
Awesome.
So yeah.
All right. Thanks for being with us, James.
Cheers, guys. Have fun.
All right. Bye-bye.
Nice one.
That was so much fun. You guys have to get super close now. We'll do this. You know, it's funny because James came into our worlds from the outside, right? Like he approached Josh about being in a project. Josh approached me about being in that project. And then we're all informed about James. And ever since then, I've gotten so much joy out of their Instagram and the things that they have shared. And I feel like over the years that I've known of your work, that the level of joy that I get from the things that you post, and now that I get to see in person on a fairly regular basis, it is this real sense of like happiness, that seeing it, and it kind of brightens my day if I scroll through and I'm like, oh, what are they up to? You know, new bub this, or like when you did the chodes for Halloween, you know, like it made everybody smile and giggle. And how much of that do you think about when you're making this stuff?
I'm not really like that kind of conceptualizer, and that was like Jordan's idea for the Halloween. Well, West wanted us to do Halloween dicks,
right?
And then Jordan's like, how about a dick witch? And I'm like, I don't know what you're talking about. That doesn't make sense to me.
A dick witch. Can you just show it one more time? And I'm gonna solo you so everybody can see the dick witch.
Yeah, totally.
It's so great.
Yeah, and he's like, oh, just a dick riding a broomstick, and I'm like, I don't understand how that works. And then he just drew a little, sketch of it, and
that's awesome.
Yeah, so I'm hoping that we do more collaborations like that because it's fun, and I'm like very kind of like removed from popular and like reference culture and the stuff that I do. Like these bodies kind of exist in their own reality, it feels like.
Mm-hmm.
So it's fun when somebody else I'm working with has ideas that relate to like culture.
Right.
Yeah, and I think it's really relatable when you do touch on those things. So it's fun to work with that too. I totally forgot if you asked a question.
It's fine. We got there. Let's kind of just rewind from where we are though, because kind of reintroduce yourselves one more time, and this time tell us how you met and when the stuff that you were putting out kind of became more collaborative, and how that works together.
Yeah, I was doing this on my own for about I guess 8 years, and it was just really slow.
Let our listeners know at home which one of you is speaking.
Oh, Patrick.
There you go. All right, great.
Yeah, so I was doing it alone for 8 years, and it was just really slow, and I never really, and I still don't, I'm not very proactive about anything. So I just kind of respond to people saying like, can you do this? And then sure, I'll try to do it,
Right.
But then I don't know, you could say how you came in contact with me initially.
Yeah, we started dating. We met over shared love of obscure video game called Kentucky Route Zero. It's like if David Lynch was a pretentious college kid who made video games. It's really good. Yeah, and then we started dating, and I saw what he was doing, and he asked me for my help for a little bit, like tabling and helping with producing some of the art. And I was like, yeah, okay. And then I saw people's response to it, and people were so excited about it. And I was like, this is special. Like most people make art and then they put it out there and then no one cares. Like, this is different. like why aren't you doing this more? And he was like, oh, I guess I could. And yeah, we started producing art together, and I've been handling some of the logistical stuff of like connecting with people and getting us at more spots.
Yeah, and just making stuff at a scale that I never thought or wasn't possible as a solo person, because like the first thing we like truly collaborated on was an installation at Lazy Bear in 2021.
Yes.
Okay. And they were 12 feet tall, you know, and the maximum that I had ever done was 8 feet, which is the size of a wood plywood board. And that's something I can manage on my own, like physically, but when you get past that, like you need help, you know? And so that was like our first big collaboration, and it just set a precedence for like, oh, we could actually just do anything now because there's two people working on it at the same time. So
awesome. So the installation thing is something that Joshua and I wanted to chat about with you. You have become now known really for these installations of the Bubs in different spaces. Like, for instance, we almost got to connect when you were in Austin, Patrick. I don't know. Was Jordan, were you here then too?
Yeah.
Okay, gotcha. And so we almost got to connect then because you were here for Outfest, I believe.
Outsider Fest.
Outsider Fest. And then you ended up auctioning off some of the Bubs, but then two of the Bubs ended up living now at Iron Bear.
Yeah.
So every time I go into Iron Bear, I now, there's but you have done gallery shows. I've seen some gallery show pictures and things that you've done, but you seem to be, you know, really finding a real kind of strong streak of installations that you've been doing. Do you feel like that's really what you're more drawn to than the gallery experience?
Yeah, definitely. Like it seems goofy, like content wise, but we really do have like a philosophical reason for what we're doing, which is to try to like diversify queer spaces. Specifically, there's artwork by this guy Tom Finland, which most gay men know about.
Right.
But he basically celebrates cops and, in the worst case, Nazis. And he's been quoted as saying, like, oh, I just love those Nazi uniforms. I don't agree with their politics, of course, but like,
right,
you know, sexy as fuck Nazis, you know?
Right.
So that has been the aesthetic of most queer spaces and still is. Any leather bar you go into, and also a lot of other bars just have these, if there's any art, it's Tom of Finland.
Or guys that look like Tom of Finland that were drawn in the style of
Tom of Finland inspired,
yeah,
totally. And that there's like a whole other thing. But Jordan's working on a project about the guy that did most of these cutouts, because that's a whole weird thing too. But yeah, just aesthetically, that's been the case in most bars, and we just want to kind of upend that and diversify spaces and celebrate other kinds of bodies, and make it more friendly and less authoritative, you know?
Yeah.
So the Iron Bear is actually the first bar that's taken in work permanently, which is great. And we're working with bars in California to try to do the same thing.
That's awesome.
Not just us, but other artists too. So we're trying to like open up the door for just other stuff in there, you know?
Yeah.
I bet Rock Bar in New York would be open to that, Nakia.
I was just gonna ask what bars in particular do you? What's your wish list of bars? Because Rock Bar, I bet, would for sure do it.
Totally, yeah. I didn't think of that place, but that would be perfect.
Yeah. What about Diesel in Portland?
I haven't been there actually.
No, me neither.
That guy's cool.
Yeah.
Last time I went to Portland was like 10 years ago.
Well, I think, let's talk about the installations a little bit more though, because one of the things that I think is so beautiful about Western Exposure is how open and accepting they are of all body types and really of all people. I mean, even this particular Dad Fest that I'm getting ready to participate in, we're going to have a female comic as part of the lineup. Wes was never like, oh, I don't want girl, whatever. It was nobody, there was never even a question, and that was also one of the first spaces that was a bear event that I saw trans people being, openly accepted at in those spaces like that. And you are probably one of the first more well-known bear artists that I have seen put, trans people in their work, how has specifically working at Western Exposure, kind of informed this idea of diversifying these queer spaces?
Yeah, I mean, we were really lucky to get hooked up with Wes, and that was because of the Austin thing. Actually, he saw photos of the thing we did in Austin, and he's like, "You should do this here too."
Oh, cool! I didn't know that.
Yeah, and so it's just weird like that. Like these things that we do that seem sort of inconsequential end up being these gateways into other places, But
right.
Yeah, the West thing is really unique because he just gives us total creative freedom to do whatever we want. Like he's like, oh, here's some money, here's a place to stay, also here's some food to eat most of the time, and just do whatever you want, And since we have that freedom and we're not like working on a commission to fulfill a certain thing, then I'm just doing what I feel is good to do, which is to depict as diverse a population as possible.
Yeah.
And I intentionally try to keep the figures like as vague as possible and not use true skin color, because then it is another limitation of like, oh, you're specifically depicting these things.
Right.
And this way people can kind of see themselves in this more abstract representation. And then, like you said, of course, like depicting trans people as much as possible, because trans men, it turns out, when you take testosterone, you tend to gain weight and get really hairy. So, like, a lot of trans dudes end up being bears. And I think the biggest community of trans men, it seems to be in the bear community. So,
yeah, for sure. I'm curious, Jordan, how much your film experience played into last October's particular setup with the CCTV.
That was fully a collaboration, actually. We're both fans of the Fluxus art movement, and
tell us what that means.
It's like what does that mean? Just abstract art from like the 60s and 70s that was like film and video and conceptual based.
The biggest artist of that era is Namjoon Pike, who did like a lot of CRT work, and most of the art in that movement kind of talks about the interaction of the body and technology. So like the human body versus basically the machine, which is mostly televisions and projectors, it turns out. But just a bunch of stuff kind of interrogating that intersection.
And Patrick was always a fan of projectors, but didn't really have like an art practice using them. But I did. I was working in a bar, and I was doing like visuals for shows and stuff, and so I kind of like had the gear and sort of like the ideas, and Patrick is like better conceptually, and so I forget who came up with the idea for the video sling. It was probably you, but it felt like it just emerged while we were talking.
Yeah, totally.
But Patrick was really excited at the idea of making people's bodies who were there the decoration. Because that's sort of the goal he did at his thesis work in his MFA he just got on sort of the decorations of sex parties and how the ideal is the bodies of the people who are there. And so that was sort of a first step into that.
Yeah, like weirdly, the goal of what we're doing to me is to try to like make what we're doing obsolete in a way, like open up the doors so much that it's not the only representation, and ideally people are fully represented somehow, and through technology people can be their own artwork and their own decoration of the party, and they can kind of control the vibe of the party like through their own bodies, which is what sex parties are anyway, but just adding that technological element like makes it so much bigger and weirder and fun.
It was one of my favorite parts of that Western exposure. For folks at home, there's a particular section of CCBC that's kind of behind everything, and the majority of the bubs and chodes were kind of in that back area that time. And in fact, I think it was I want to say it had a name. Like it was like an area. It was like branded, but with like something, forget, like Daddyland or something.
I think they called it like the Bear Trail or something.
Yeah.
But then, our little area was like the video sling. So,
yeah. So in the back, there's several slings that are open for people to use, and a few benches. And hi, Jim. And this particular one sling had an old school CCTV camera pointed at it that was hooked up to a projector that then projected onto the side of the back of the motel. That just happened to be a white wall, basically. It was perfect for it. So you could, in my case, I was busy in one sling and able to watch in the other.
Yeah.
At one point, well, and watch my husband in the other. So it was just really, really wild, like I'd never seen. And it kind of also weirdly, like it almost kind of weirdly was also the equivalent of like window shopping, because you could kind of see who was in the sling when you were walking by. So you could kind of be like, well, do I want to wait around and like try to take a turn, or whatever. And so it kind of, I don't know, it was very interactive, and it was very unexpected because I'd been to a couple of these at this point and I was not expecting that at all. Was that why was it just like the one-off thing as part of what you were exploring with your MFA, or do you think you'll do it again?
Well, so we did that at Western Exposure twice, and while I was in school, I just finished, I considered all that stuff part of my research or part of my practice.
Right.
And so like we would go to these sex parties and I'd just be like thinking about how this relates to the thesis I was writing. And that experiment with it was a night vision camera, was really cool, but I also noticed that it didn't display all bodies the same. If you had darker skin, it didn't pick you up as much as people with lighter skin. So it was still sort of race biased in that way. And I thought, like, what could I do to equalize that a little bit more? And I found this technology of a thermal camera, which just recognizes body heat. And then my thesis project at school became hanging a sex sling in a gallery at school and pointing a thermal camera down at the sling. So whoever got in the sling, and it wasn't a sexual situation, it was more just a playful gallery exhibition. Whoever got in the sling, their body heat was projected on the wall instead of It's just this kind of like grainy, biased night vision camera.
Wow.
So if we were to do it again, I think using a thermal camera, which is also a lot more colorful and like in line with what we do anyway, would be really cool. But sorry, there's a dog in here. The university paid for the thermal camera, and I don't have it anymore. So hopefully we can raise for that, and we can get that going in a bigger way at the next CCBC.
One of the things that we were talking about with James was kind of how, because his work is very based in nostalgia, there are several instances where he's directly referencing things like The Simpsons or Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Are there pop culture, kind of like ideas that you've had of like, doing a bub in this, in the style of this, or doing a bub as, this as a bub as, Homer Simpson or that kind of thing?
Not as much. Like there are some like films that come out, usually animated films, that just have like these unnecessarily like beefy and hot like characters in them.
Right. Yeah.
I think like a lot of the animators at these studios are just like secretly horny, because the way that they're drawing these bellies are like, how would you do that if you didn't actually, appreciate it in a certain way? So I have done stuff like what was that movie called? Wendell and Wild. Wendell and Wild. It was like a Jordan Peele small motion animation film that was on Netflix, and it's really interesting. Not perfect, but it has this character that's like this gigantic fat devil that has a circus on his belly, like an entire circus on his belly,
and he's wearing bondage gear.
So he's like an S&M like devil guy, and so I did do a version of that.
Oh wow.
They know what they're doing there, so
yeah. And the crazy so there's this part in the movie where he eats somebody, and they go through his entire body and shoot out his ass, and you see from the outside like Devilman's like full on asshole, and just the characters that you've been following in the film like going out of his butt. And yeah, it was like, this keeps getting crazier, I'm like, oh, it's cute, and that's like, oh no, now I know what Devilman's hole looks like too.
Not what I would have expected on Netflix, but
yeah. Then I did the cheetah from Zootopia, because he's just like this dumb himbo cheetah.
Totally.
Yeah. So I've done it a few times. It's not my favorite thing. Like when I try to look at references, it just kind of messes me up. So
right.
The ideal situation is that I just have it so powerfully in my head that I can just like bring it from my head to the page and not have to like look at something,
Totally. Are you talking about Clawhauser?
Clawhauser, yes.
Yes. When that movie came out, someone did the absolute best Photoshop I had ever seen of someone kind of they took all of my friend Nick's photo except for his head, and they put Clawhauser's head on him, but then also made his skin look like it was so well done. But it was, he was in a pair of tidy whities, and this was Tumblr, so. And we talked a lot last week to Hamish Steele about Tumblr, and like you couldn't come up on Tumblr and not see like every kind of, what do you call it? Rule 34 porn that there was, right? Have you seen people kind of drawing bubs in any kind of other styles at all?
I feel like there are some people that I've seen that seem inspired by the stuff that we've been doing. Recently somebody got a tattoo of something that I drew, and they just sort of like modified it a little bit to be more personalized, which I'm totally fine with.
Wow.
But yeah, that's like the 5th or 6th time somebody's gotten a tattoo of the work.
That's really
A
cool.
lot of times they just like send me a message and they're like, I got a tattoo. I'm like, whoa, okay. I spent 10 minutes on that drawing. Good for you.
I wanted to circle back. Josh just mentioned Netflix real quickly. When you were talking about the video game that kind of brought you guys together, I real quick did a Google search, and I realized that since I think you've been together, maybe now that game is actually on Netflix. But I wanted to, Josh, will you put me in?
I will, yes.
Let me know.
Oh, they're playing. Okay. Well.
This is Kentucky Route Zero.
Yeah. Yeah, so it's just beautiful. Like it has this really flat feeling, which I personally aesthetically appreciate. But it's basically like a play. But
It looks like Inside.
Yeah, but it was before Inside, right? Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, it had this really long development process where they like released it in acts. So I think it was like five acts.
I think it was like 10 years or
and
something.
it took 10 years for them to finish the game. So they released the first act like way at the beginning of the whole like indie games thing. So they were one of the first people to be like, a game can be this aesthetic thing that you've never seen before and really powerful.
Gotcha.
Yeah. But yeah.
That game that you were playing, Nakia, when I was at your place, where with the jumping and everything and the clones.
That's Inside.
Oh, okay. Then yeah, okay. Then yes. I'm on the same page as everyone then.
Yeah, that's oh, there we go. That's Inside. And there's another game kind of like that, Limbo.
Yeah. Limbo is by the same developers as Inside. Yeah.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah.
Did you say that was a game on Netflix, Nakia? How is?
Well, when I searched for it on YouTube, there's a Netflix trailer. Netflix has been doing games. And I don't know how they're doing games, but they are doing games.
Okay.
And so there's a trailer for a separate version on Netflix.
Okay.
Yeah.
But before I forget, while we're talking about these things, you guys, I think, sent a link, to a little film that you made. And I want to pull that up.
Yeah, so again, like I went to school for photography and sort of video, and so that's like my undergrad education is like the moving image and photography and composition that way. And so I've always loved that, and we do kind of go back on that sometimes and just do these like little weird projects together. And during the pandemic, we ran a queer video showcase on Twitch, like a lot of people were doing, like with drag bars and stuff, to kind of keep queer culture alive.
Mm-hmm.
And so this project was a result of one of those. Like we'd have these showcases, and we'd always contribute one, and then we'd take submissions from a dozen other people too. So
cool. And this is called A Boy Goes Fishing.
Yeah.
All right. Well, let's take a look. This is 3 minutes and 29 seconds long. So stick with us. We'll be right back after A Boy Goes Fishing. Tuttle Chunk Production.
Yeah, so that was the name of the like series we did on Twitch called
Nice.
And we still have that name and everything, and we might go back to it eventually.
It was very, very cute. Yeah, it was very, very cute. So I'm guessing then, Patrick, you were behind the camera?
Yeah, except for the part where I come out of the water in blue jeans, which was a bad idea.
No, I love it. I thought it was great, but it must have been really, really hard to walk around. Yeah. I thought it would be worth showing here that we have a connection to one of your daddies from the sea.
Oh yeah.
It's muted.
Jason.
I don't do private gigs. Well, then give me my money back.
Turn it up.
Small bear world.
Just gonna stand here and talk all night. We gotta go upstairs to my apartment. Look.
This is from season 5 of Skeleton Crew.
It can wait a few hours while you go and make a grieving family a little happier. Listen, I didn't duck out of that party early just so we can stand around while your stalker hunts you down and whines. I am not a stalker. We'll be on the finish line. Just give me a second.
These captions are wrong.
Maybe. I cannot maintain my dignity and not do this private gig. And still do you a solid. But it really depends.
When was that? When did we film that?
When did we film that? We filmed that in 2019.
Wow.
October of 2019.
It feels so long ago.
It was. It was 4 years.
Yeah,
It was
but
over 4 years.
This, plus I'm seeing a different face. So
yes, I understand.
I don't look like when I see my jaw from that side now since the surgery, it's like I don't even know.
Well, it's like seeing a different face.
It is. Well, plus when you add in the weight loss, it's so wild.
Yeah.
Guys, I'm really, really glad that you were able to join us today. I have had tons of questions about, the work for years. Obviously, Patrick, I think, Jordan, you know this too, that the way I came into knowing about you was through Big Boy Vintage. In fact, Robert wore that shirt, which no longer fits me, to when we were viewing houses the other day. Yeah, it was very cute. I was like, oh, and that was kind of a one-off shirt that you did for Rudy, I believe. And it's super cute. And this is, before you met Jordan, and I don't even think that was really you in the image either, was it?
No, yeah. So Rudy was also kind of a horny inspiration because we were hanging out and fucking around when I lived on the West Coast in LA. I knew him and Graham and all those other people.
Right.
And so he was like randomly texting me while I was at work at this job where I had way too much time. And he would just like get me all riled up and then I'd like draw something.
Right.
And one of the first things I drew for him was like a dream that he had of me like fucking him over a log in the woods or something. And I'm like, oh, this feels really good. This looks cool.
Right.
And then I posted it on Tumblr and then people were like, oh, this is really cool. And I just kept posting it. But then he asked me, he's like, oh, you can draw now. So like draw me a t-shirt, And then I was like, okay. So I did that. And then I kept doing t-shirts.
I love it. What's on your horizon? What are you focusing on right now?
So we just did a new t-shirt design.
Oh,
it's at the shop being printed right now.
Is it a t-shirt of a giant dick?
So it's actually chubby guys, which is unusual for us. Oh my gosh, the mushroom show.
Yeah.
No, it's we're going to be selling it we have a few events coming up this summer that we're going to be selling it at, that I might make it on the store. But this was a whole other thing, the inflatables.
The inflatables are great, and you've got a new one, right?
Yeah, that was the new one, but we have two more that are smaller than that. So
okay, gotcha.
The giant mushroom, which we project visuals on again. That was the tattoo I was talking about earlier.
Oh, that just popped up on my Facebook. Somebody else posted that earlier.
Yeah, and then if you go to the next frame on that, like if you go to that image, the tattoo one, and you go original of his name is Buffalo Belzer, and he like has a circus on his belly. That's the whole thing.
That's the demon from the Netflix movie.
Yeah. So yeah, but yeah, we've been getting into inflatables because I love like large scale stuff, and I think like these queer things should be like as large and noticeable as possible and just take up space. And inflatables are so quick to set up. You just plug them in and they inflate in like 3 minutes, and they just have such a huge visual impact. So
Joseph.
The eventual goal is to do like a big bub inflatable, but that's harder to design. So.
There is a guest that'll be on the show soon, Chris Grace.
Oh, cool.
Nice.
Yeah.
We love Chris. Also a Western exposure friend.
Mm-hmm.
Do you guys feel like that there's a sense of community at Western exposure?
Totally, yeah. And it's like the most laid back, like no pressure, sex positive situation I've been in, where it's like, if you want to do stuff, there's plenty of stuff to do. But if you just hang out by the pool, that's absolutely an option as well. And so I think it's a really good introduction for a lot of people into like more like diverse sexual space. And sex parties and sex clubs like Steamworks can be really intimidating, even for me. Like I don't really like places that are just for one thing. So I think when it's a mixed environment, it's really, really powerful. They can kind of like ease into something and just as easily ease out of it,
Yeah, one thing that I've noticed at a lot of bear events is a lot of people love to like show off their cute outfits and like walk strut around like looking super cute. And because it's a nude resort, everyone's naked. There's like none of that energy of like, look at how much cuter I am than everyone. Everyone's just like, hey, let's like, I'm horny, I'm ready to go. If you are, cool. If not, also cool. Like, it's really wonderful.
Yeah, I mean, there's a handful of people, every year that are, I think, I've seen that are typically have not been there before, that like they kind of come with that original, like, oh, I've got an outfit for every day.
Mm-hmm.
I was one of those people. I brought an outfit for every day. And then I was like, wait, I'm hardly wearing the clothes I'm bringing. Why am I bringing 6 pairs of clothes? I really only need like 2 t-shirts, a pair of under, whatever. Like, so, and then there's the times where, the first like few hours of each day, there's the caftan rush, and then once that dies down, then everybody's bought their caftans, and then you don't see them much after the rest of the weekend. But because you don't need them.
Yeah.
I am bringing mine this time, though. I am going to wear it this time.
Yeah, you need that sun cover.
Yeah.
It's going to be hot.
Yeah. Well, mine's all black, so maybe I shouldn't bring it. Yeah. And I'm going to be there early this time to help set up.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. It's such a bummer you guys aren't going to be there.
Yeah, we'll be there in October for the first section of that. It's like a 2-part because late in October is Barrison Street Fair, which is a bear street fair in San Francisco.
Yeah, my agent just tried to email them to see about getting me on that gig.
Yeah, if you want more help with that, like just let us know, because we know a lot of people that are involved. But I don't know if it's like a comedy type of situation. It's more like music oriented.
Well, I'm a musician. So.
Yeah.
That's what I do.
Nakia is not funny, so
yeah.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Unless you thought that song that I played earlier was funny, then yes, I'm a
comedian. Sorry, I'm a little tired. We were talking about comedy night for a second.
Right. We do have comedy with me. I'm the only musician in all these people.
Yeah,
but
the thing.
That's this coming Friday, or in this coming a week from today, basically. And these two boys will not be there. But I do love it when you're there and you have your dog. Tell me your dog's name again. Bucky.
Yeah, his birthday is today. He's 13 years old.
Oh, happy birthday, Bucky. Our dog got spayed on Wednesday, so she is doped up and chilling.
Nice.
Yeah. Well, we are really appreciative of your time. Thank you so much for joining us. For folks at home, you can go to bearpad.art, which is awesome. Or you can follow them pretty much everywhere at Bearpad Art. And that is BEARPADART. I will see you boys in person in October. It'd be great if I saw you somewhere before that, but I will be looking forward to seeing you in October. We've already got our room reserved at Western Exposure. And for folks who are interested in coming, you can join us next week for Dad Fest. That's Western Exposure. That's with an X. There's no E at the beginning of exposure.net. We will be back after these messages. Thanks again for being here, boys.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
All right. We will be right back.
Sound is speeding, cameras are rolling. This is day one, take one of...
Why do you have two different cameras?
What?
Oh god, this footage is gonna look like shit. Got a crucial audition, and it is imperative that everything go flawlessly. Do you understand?
Mm-hmm.
Excellent.
What if we said no?
Are you okay?
We have a fabulous guest for you today.
Yeah, you want to talk about Emmy? She's great.
So glad that Emmy's making a comeback. Although I suppose, did she really go anywhere? She's just been sort of bumbling around, hasn't she?
Do you know who I am?
You are a has-been from the 90s, Emmy Hart.
She is brilliant, strong, and she is so humble.
I'm the glue that holds Emmy together. So without me, she's just kind of like a fart in the wind.
Felix, you slept with my mom?
No.
Sex in my 60s is the best of my life.
What the are you doing?
You have chlamydia and gonorrhea.
Well, I already know that. What's the good news?
Emmy, you need these eye drops because of your drug problem. Look at how red your eyes are.
Oh my god.
I'm overcome with emotion too!
Wow, that's a nice bra.
I am so proud of you for exploring your sexuality one micro orgasm at a time.
Can you make me feel good? Please, can you just make me feel good? Please.
Oh my god! How?
Come back later, and we'll do the scene again. Out of my way.
Can't wait.
You don't got the way, you can watch it at the art of blowing at the series.com. Thank you. What a treat. What a great show today.
It was a lovely show. It was really, really great. I had a great time meeting Bearpad. I hadn't known them before. I knew of their work, but I had never met them. And then I knew James, but I had never spoken to him in person. So
he was quite lovely.
He was. I thought he was for his first podcast. He was fabulous. He was a natural.
I agree. Yeah, it kind of makes me want to start another podcast with him and him and Bearpd, where we just talk about the influences of pornography in culture and gay and queer life. Like, I don't know, there's so much pornography informs so much of what I experienced. Not even like gay pornography. I mean, there was mostly straight pornography, to be honest. Because that's all that was available. But it had such a profound effect on how I view bodies, my own body image. There's so many things to unpack about it. You know, there's a great podcast. It's not really a podcast. I guess it is. Yeah, it's called The Butterfly Effect, and it's on Amazon Prime. I don't know if they still do this anymore on Audible, but it used to be on Audible, and it was you had to be an Amazon Prime member to get it, and it talks about the fallout from when the guy who created not XTube, Pornhub, when the guy who created PornTube or whatever that was called originally, when that guy created that, how it sent this ripple effect through, or I guess butterfly effect through the entire pornography industry, and like how it kind of like, you know, affected you know, boys who had sent videos to girls who were, you know, like high school kids exchanging links and videos and stuff, how it, you know, got them in trouble and got them in jail and all these kinds of things. And then like trying to then interview the guy who created it to see like what his thoughts were on, you know, like how he changed the world and what it, I mean, it's pretty interesting to me.
Absolutely. And I mean, I've never actually seen pornography, but I think that it is a pretty revolutionary art form and everything. So,
yeah. Well, what a fantastic show.
Bletchy Bear did have a question about Dick Witch. He thought we meant Dick Warlock. I didn't bring it up when Bearpd was here because I didn't think they were thinking about this, but I have an explanation because I believe that Warlock and Witch are gendered terms, but they're not meant to be gendered terms because
correct.
A Warlock is somebody who makes a pact with a demon or some sort of magical being
correct.
To get their power through that pact, whereas a witch is just someone who uses magic, usually inherently or through spells and rituals and all. So witch is not inherently a gendered term, and a warlock is not inherently a gendered term, but mainstream media has made it so.
And this has been horror entomology with Joshua Arpant, horror language. Do you watch the Monstrum series on PBS?
No, I've never even heard of it.
PBS YouTube has a great, several great series. One of them is called Monstrum, and it talks about the origins of, like, you know, the unicorn, the centaur, all of these things. It'd be great to have that doctor on the show.
That would be interesting,
especially around something Demon Doctor related.
It'd be great to have him meet Dr. Derek Jedial. So it'd be great to have her meet Dr. Derek Jedial.
Yeah.
So.
Speaking of Warlock, Julian Sands, R.I.P.
I know. I never actually seen the movie Warlock. So
really,
I might need to watch it. Just,
you know, it's funny because we were talking last night about VHS and stuff and the video store, and I forget who I was talking to about this exactly, but anyway, his movie Warlock was a huge, like, always rented out in the 90s. It was never in stock. It was always rented.
Interesting.
Yeah, it was very popular at the time. It was one of the first kind of big, you know, VHS horror movies that around that time where it was really peaking. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. I feel like, they've known for a long time that there's no way he could have been alive.
I think everyone knew that.
Yeah.
At this point.
So it's just so, I don't know. It's so wild, that people, just random things can happen like that. And who knows what the story is? Maybe they do the autopsy and it was something else. We don't know yet, but
yeah.
Pretty wild. Lots of weird stuff in the world these days. And I'm glad that we make it a little weirder in the best way. What is this here?
Blushing Bear says this is why we should stay independent. This is in reference to the streaming networks.
Oh, gotcha.
And he's right about that. I mean, a lot of shows, if you think about it, they don't really get their audience until the second season, sometimes the third season even. Like Buffy is a great example. That show didn't really take off until the second season. I think if you, look at Lucifer. Lucifer is a show that didn't catch on until 2 or 3, and then it moved to a new network and got a whole new life because of Netflix. And
right.
So it's now it's one and done, because if you don't get your audience in that first episode, then they consider you a write-off and it's time to remove you. And that's just not how art works, and that's not how people enjoy it. So
not in television format.
Yeah.
One and done works for collectibles.
But even for movies too, like movies, it doesn't work that way. Like sometimes a movie will be not very successful in the cinema, and then it goes to home video, and it's like, oh, everyone loved this movie. Everyone,
right.
So,
well, thanks for everybody for tuning in. We will be back on Monday night. Coming Monday, July 3rd. We'll have Big Dipper and Dominic Burgess joining us. Really excited about this one. We got lots of stuff to talk to both of them about. Big Dipper, of course, fantastic musician, rap artist, hip hop artist, and really lately has become kind of a podcast celebrity, if you will. Really producing podcasts as well as hosting various podcasts, most notably Sloppy Pod with Meatball. So we'll get into all that. And then Dominic Burgess, who is really kind of a prolific, plus size actor.
Everything.
He's done it all. He's been in. Isn't he also in the MCU and the DCU?
Well, he was in the Flash TV series.
Right.
I don't know if he's in the MCU.
He would did an Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. as well, maybe.
I'd have to take a look and see, but I don't think he did.
Right, we gotta review this before Monday, and then just looking forward beyond that, we'll be airing this episode on July 10th, since I will be at Tanya Tucker's Austin City Limits taping. July 17th, we've got Chris Grace here to talk about his big hit show that just won a bunch of awards during Hollywood Fringe Fest in Los Angeles. Chris Grace is going to be with us, and then Mark Eugene Garcia, who just published another play. I mean, he just can't stop. He won't stop.
Can't stop, won't stop, and he's also the star of Demon Doctor, our wonderful show on SideKick Productions.
That's correct. And then we have not fully booked out the 24th, but we do have the first guest booked for the 24th. We'll keep you posted on that. Let us know in the comments who you want to see, or add us on social media. I am at Nakia.
I am at SideKick Productions.
And we will be seeing y'all on Monday night. Thanks again to everybody who has become a member of the Crooniverse over at patreon.com/SideKick Productions, where we post pretty much everything that we do. Thank you, Jim.
Jim.
We post pretty much everything we do over there first, and you get to see it all over there everywhere. And you can join for as little as $3 a month. We'd love to have you, and it means a lot.
And join our Discord.
Yeah, once you join the Patreon, you'll get access to the Discord. So, looking forward to seeing you over there. Thanks again, Josh, for a great show.
Thank you for having me, and thank you for this wonderful day.
All right, talk to you soon. Bye.
And that's the tea.